How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Fourever Arsenal podcast. Hope you're all good and well. Big up Jordan, big up Lee, and big up James. We're back. It's the end of the international break. I say the end. There's still a few more days left, and obviously the Premier League returns this weekend. But we're here to provide a mini preview of the Everton game this weekend, give our predictions as usual. I'll bring up the prediction table, but we're also going to discuss the hot topics and the headlines that have come about throughout the international break. And there is a couple. There's a couple that we can delve into. So make sure you hit the like button. Let's get the likes up to 1,000. And hopefully you enjoy the show. We've got comments of the day coming too. Make sure you leave your comments after the show and give us your thoughts on all of the subjects that we discuss in this upcoming show. But first and foremost, lads, it's international break. How are we feeling? First weekend of the season that there hasn't been Premier League football since it started. Welcome break.
No, bored.
No?
Bored. I'm glad the tennis has been on. Although that's
and the Rugby World Cup. There's plenty of cricket.
Yeah, did you watch the Wales? Did you watch Wales Fiji? That was very exciting, and I'm not a rugby fan. So yeah, that tells you everything you need to know. I watched actually. I tell you what, I watched the Super Mario movie. Have you seen it?
No.
Apparently, it's really good. It's emotional.
Oh my god,
it was all right.
Superman. I'd rather watch a tactical show.
Early shots. Not even a minute and a half in.
Wow.
No reason.
Mario.
No reason to throw strays at Mario, but you know. Yeah. So that's been my week. Tennis, rugby, Mario, playing Football Manager.
Yeah, the old Arsenal's got to come back quick for you then, James.
Yeah.
James has lost himself rugby, you know. I never thought I'd see the day. James has been watching rugby, but here we are.
Can I just say something like, I think I would have actually liked to have watched 6 episodes of the tactical show back to back than watch another England game like that. It's so boring to watch.
Oh yeah, England played, didn't they? Yeah, that happened.
They are so poor. It's so poor to watch. I just can't. I'm going to say it now. The quicker they get that Southgate out, the better. I can't stand him.
Yeah,
I can't stand him.
I thought the Sidemen charity match was a better occasion, in my opinion.
Oh, that was embarrassing.
Did
you were there, weren't you, Turkish?
Yeah, I was there.
I've got to say, why are you such a hater?
It's embarrassing.
What's embarrassing?
It's the equivalent to WWF. It's like, come on, what are you doing here?
Millions.
Well done.
Yeah, can they play football?
What do you mean well done? What do you mean well done?
Can they play
You can just say you're welcome.
I
think it's fantastic they earn money, but is it a good football? Is it good football?
It's awful watch.
Yeah, but it's funny like that. It's a laugh. I've got to say, Bazinga running in on goal and scoring at West Ham when he's a West Ham fan, that's pretty cool. Like, I don't know why.
You know what? I was there, and I was like when obviously I was offered the tickets. I went with the big 6 lot. I just thought to myself, this ain't my age group. It's
it's
for
not
younger.
Turkish.
When I was there, I can't lie, for what it is and what they've put on and what they've done, and then at the end of here they've raised 2.2 million. I'm like, well done. I can only applaud it. The quality is not great, but I wasn't there for the quality, and I don't think they're there for their own quality. I think it's more just about the event and what they've managed to create together. I think I look more fondly on it now, having been there, than I did prior to it. Prior to, I was very much like you lot, thinking, what is this stuff, man? Who really gives a shit? But
so basically, it's been an awful international break. Is that all we're saying? It's been a crap international break.
No, I respect it. I thought
I did some gardening as well.
Big up to Cecil pitch side, interviewing KSI.
That was the only good thing about it.
And I've got to say, I'm not sure I want to see goalkeepers interviewed mid-match. It's like a regular feature. That would just have me. Can you imagine Aaron Ramsdale? I mean, he's already sort of distracted half the time. And you've got Cecil pitch side. Aaron should have done better with that effort, don't you think? But anyway, so that's been my international rate. What about you, Turkish? What have you been up to? You at the game? What else?
Yeah, I went to the Sidemen game, done a couple of things with Big 6, that content-wise coming out. Spent time with my son.
Nice.
Yeah, all the good things, really. I didn't even watch the England game. I mean, I see that Eddie wasn't in the squad, so I thought I'm not, there's nothing I want to really see here. Hopefully Eddie gets a start or minutes against, I think it's Scotland in the friendly next, which I assume he will. Otherwise,
I don't think he will, Turkish,
Well, don't pick him then. You got a friendly coming now. There's no. If you're not going to give him minutes in this one, then you might as well have not picked him. He's on the England YouTube channel having an interview or he being part of the interviews and whatnot. Surely you get minutes in a friendly against Scotland, but we'll see. That's tomorrow, I believe. And yes, this show does come out the same day we record. So it is tomorrow, but we'll see if Eddie gets some minutes. Hopefully he does. But like I said, there has been a couple hot topics or headlines coming out around Arsenal over the last couple of weeks. The transfer window closed in the UK a couple of weeks ago on the Friday night, but the transfer window remained open in other countries, Turkey being one of them, Saudi Arabia being another, and a few others across the world. So there was still business being done. And I don't know if you can call this business being done by Arsenal because we've terminated the contract of our previous record signing, Nicolas Pepe, who came in for 72 mil in 29. Is it 2019? He came
in? Summer 2019. Yeah.
29. It was 2019. Yeah, it wasn't 2018, was it?
No, summer 2019.
Emery's second summer. Okay, so yeah, 2019. He's gone on a free, and he's signed for Trabzonspor in Turkey. I do want to delve into why we never get any good value, sometimes no value from our players. But I want to start with Nicolas Pepe because, there's much debate about his time at Arsenal. There's much debate about whether he goes into the list of top 5, top 10 flops in the Premier League era. I have, heavy expenditure spent. 72 million for Arsenal, especially at that time, was deemed wow. We've gone on to break it since, but Nicolas Pepe is no longer a gunner. Who should we start with? Jordan, let's start with you. Nicolas Pepe. Thoughts on his Arsenal career and what happened, essentially?
Yeah, man. It hasn't worked out. I think it's important to note, first of all, that Nicolas Pepe is not a crap player. There's plenty of players that I'll happily come on here and say he's crap. He's rubbish. He's not a rubbish player. And one of my good friends, Simeon, he watched the show as well. It was reminding me the stats actually don't look that bad across Nicolas Pepe. I think there was a lot of excitement about him because of the transfer fee. For us to spend, let's go back to that summer. For Arsenal to drop £72 million on one player. I mean, there were certain transfer windows we didn't spend that amount of money. So to do it on one player, I think there's a level of excitement and expectation that comes with that. And I just think, unfortunately, he just hasn't made the grade. I think there's an argument to suggest that it would have been maybe worthwhile keeping him just as backup to Saka, at the end of the season. But it's not worked out and he wants to go and play football. I think his biggest issue for me was that he's just very predictable. I think that became the biggest problem for Nicolas Pepe. I think he had one trick and he was very good at that one trick. But unless you're a Robin or a Mahrez, being a one-trick pony, you need something else in your locker to really kind of make it. So it's not worked out. I don't think he's one of the worst transfers of all time, but I just don't think he was good enough to be in an Arsenal team that want to achieve big things. I think what we got back for him is embarrassing, and then we're going to get on to wider cancel contracts and just kind of how these players end up leaving. But
we didn't get anything back for him.
Well, yeah. I just think to kind of have that outlet, not be able to get 5 mil, 10 mil, 20 mil, 15 mil, something is bad. And that's not a reflection on the player. He's worth 20 mil. I'm sure we could have sold him to someone for 20 mil, surely 15 mil.
Apparently not.
Well, apparently not. But on the player himself, I just think it didn't work out. And I think the board and the guys that brought him at the time, Edu, I believe, have to take a bit of ownership on that one. It's a lot of money to throw away. But wish him the best. Didn't work out. Hopefully we learn lessons.
Yeah. Lee, I mean, harsh on Pepe to say, well, go on.
Yeah, a bit harsh, totally mismanaged, if I'll be honest, from start to finish. I don't think, if I'll be really honest, Emery wanted him. He made it clear that he wanted Zaha. They didn't give him Zaha, they give him Pepe, and I think it was never going to work from the word go. Let's face it, under Arteta, Kai Havertz has had more chances than him. if you'd be really honest about it, But and the reason being, it wasn't his player. He didn't spend the money on him. Didn't fancy him from the word go, for whatever reason. That's Mikel's prerogative. He didn't really rate him. I watched a couple of times. He done things, and as soon as he made a little bit of a mess up, Arteta was on his back. Get back here, get back there, and then I see he didn't do it with other players. So I just didn't think he wanted him about, and that's fair enough. And Arsenal have decided to take a hit on him. I've got to say this in Mikel's defence, that when he's gone out on loan, he's never done the business on the loans as well to really justify really returning to Arsenal or getting a transfer fee. I don't know whether he was like in a bad place. You don't know with mental health and things like that. So I'd rather not comment on things like what he hasn't done. I just feel that there was a player in there. I think that some of the things that he done, but when you look at someone like Saka, you didn't really want. You have to give, I think, a little bit of credit to the management of Arsenal, is that they could have actually have said, we'll keep going with Pepe because of the transfer fee. They didn't. They looked at it and thought, we've got a prospect in Saka, and we'd rather use that than keep persevering with Pepe. If you look at it from that point of view, you can't argue, can you?
Yeah, I don't think there's any arguments against it. There is, what Jordan said, whether we would have been better off keeping him as Saka backup. But you both mentioned how Arteta's used or hasn't used him since he's come in, and he's just not part of his plans. He's not interested in him as a player. And Lee, you make a great point. He's never gone on loan, set the world alight, and made Arteta, eat his decision.
One other thing I remembered. I think he had a good run in the cup final, to winning the cup final. I think he played in the cup final.
Semi in, yeah.
And his reward for that was to be replaced by Willian. So that tells you everything you need to know, that the manager doesn't rate you. And maybe because the manager doesn't rate you, I'm pretty sure if you spoke to Nicolas Pepe, he would turn around and say that, I know that he didn't rate me. So maybe you don't put in the sort of performances that you should, knowing that the manager just doesn't fancy you, So listen, that happens in football. It doesn't mean to say that you're a good player or a bad player. There's just certain managers don't think you're good enough for whatever reason, and that's what it really comes down to. I think at the end of it,
it just wasn't a fit for us, and I think. Pepe, for me, I agree. I don't think he was a terrible player. I never kind of looked at the 11 and Pepe would be in it and I'd be tearing my hair out. Why is he in this team? Because what were Pepe's strengths? I think he was a brilliant finisher. I don't think he needed many chances to find the back of the net. I think he actually would get himself in good goal scoring positions and be quite good at picking out a corner or maybe a shot from distance. He could score a goal out of nothing. If he weren't actually playing too well, he could just put it in the top corner. And I always see value in players like that. I really do. I always think, let's put it this way. If we were struggling, and we were a lot in the days where Pepe was kind of regular in the squad, he was always the player I wanted on the pitch first, just because he might do something. And he had that kind of chaotic unpredictability. I sort of wonder, in this era where coaches are everything's so meticulous and planned, and you have to do very specific things, I sort of wonder whether he'd have thrived 10 years earlier in the Premier League. He had the stature for it. He had the physicality, just played a little bit more off the right, go and express yourself and have some fun. And I think football's kind of moved away from that. Having said that, I've given him sort of that credit. And you're right, he did have runs, like he had runs to the final, and he played well in that final, by the way. So he played a part in Arsenal history, and he also had a really kind of good run. Even though we'd signed Willian, he won his place back on the right for a lot of that second half of the season. Again, we finished 8th, but he did well there. But again, put that credit aside now, because he's still under-delivered massively. He still looked like he had a heavy touch. He still looked like he couldn't beat his man quite often, despite his pace and his power. And he just felt like he didn't know what you're going to get. I think Arteta just really values players who... Let's look at Saka. I think we've all said the last few games he's not been very good. But but that's kind of by the standards he set. I sort of think if Pepe had put in the performances Saka did the last 2 games, we'd be quietly impressed. We've been like, oh, he shielded his man, he's worked quite hard, and he's been involved and he's tried to cause things. It's just we know Saka to be very efficient and very, often make the right decision, and he hasn't been. So those are the standards that Arteta's trying to get to. That kind of, even if you're not playing well, you're still a 5 out of 10. And Pepe wasn't that. Pepe not playing well was like oh god, he's really having a shocker here. So yeah, I didn't mind him. He just wasn't a fit for us. The bigger concern is why they did that deal in the first place, and then how much they got back. Yeah, that for me is almost more concerning. The fact it didn't work. Signings cannot work. That's okay. But the details around the transfers are really weird.
He's one that falls under the last regime in terms of transfer dealings and whatnot. So
yeah,
you would have hoped that the decision to restructure that regime, a lot of it was heavily down to this Pepe one, because we've heard reports a few years ago about the deal and the money involved and potential impacts on Raul Sanlle's departure and so on. Nothing in concrete, but it is a deal that we, a lot of us look at and think, in the end, it was a terrible deal. Not only for Arsenal, it was a terrible deal for Pepe, because I actually think there was a player in Pepe. It's not, for me, it wasn't only the price tag that got me excited about Pepe. I watched Pepe from about December, January, the previous season up until the end. And when we was linked and when we was actually there I was excited because he had quality about him.
Yeah.
But then Lee's right, Emery didn't like him. He didn't really integrate him as you would have thought he would have, being a 72 million sign. Then Mikel Arteta comes in. And modern day managers do not like unpredictability. That's something that, in my opinion, has been part of ruining the game. I don't think guys free to express themselves anymore, but it's also the game now, and it's the way big teams have been operating over the last maybe 5 years or more. Jordan, you had your hand up.
Yeah. Just because Lee mentions the fact that summer it was him or Zaha. I remember doing shows on AFTV where that was the debate, and I think most of the fan base wanted Zaha. I'll be honest, I wanted Pepe. Of the two, because I'd seen a bit of him, not too much, but I'd seen a little bit of him before, and I wanted Pepe. I was never really convinced by Zaha at a big club. So, I wanted Pepe, but it didn't work out. But I guess for what we're saying there's something to be said about Arsenal just being decisive. Although it's a massive hit, Arsenal just decided, you know what, just cut the contract and just move on. They've done that a few times, and I think we'll get onto that in a minute. But I think there's something to be said about, rather than dragging it out, sending him out on loan again, trying to get, if it's not working, just cut the contract. I think teams like Man United can learn a thing or two about when you've got people on big wages and you've got no plans for them, just cut the contract. But like I said, I think once or twice you can get away with that, as we're going to chat soon about. When you do that 5, 6, 7 times, it's not good business.
I think Arsenal have learned a lot from this transfer. I will say that. I think it was a vanity signing. I think it was right. We lost the Europa League final. We missed out on top 4 by a point, but we're gonna really back Emery, because I still, maybe this goes against what a lot of people think, but I still think Emery's first season was perfectly fine. I was perfectly encouraged, even though we did fall away and we did have a very bad end to that first season. I thought, back him. And they did, and they did bring in a lot of players. And Pepe, it was a really strange one, because he'd been linked with a lot of clubs, and you're hearing Arsenal can't get to the 80 million that Palace want for Zaha. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's fair enough. So, okay, but, they've got to 72 for Pepe. And you think, and I know there's a lot of add-ons, and there's a lot of, it just felt like Arsenal wanted to flex and show that they could do a certain deal. But when you hear everything after that apparently, we signed from Lille, didn't we? Apparently Lille were like blown away when we stumped up that money. They're like, yes, absolutely. I read that report in The Athletic. And then you find out that Emery never wanted him. You start thinking, come on, who thought this was a good idea? And you're right, we've heard reports or rumours of where and who we think it went wrong with. But I just think it was like we want to flex here and show something. I think Arsenal have learned a lot since then look how we ended this transfer window, by not bringing in someone when we all said we needed someone for Julian Timber. I stand by that, and I think they probably could have found someone. It was the same that January with Lacazette and when Aubameyang left and all that. And then I think last summer as well when we needed depth in midfield. Arsenal, I honestly think ever since that Pepe thing, have just decided we will not do a deal unless we are sure about the player. We just won't. We won't chance it. And I think a lot of that is driven by how wrong this Pepe deal's gone.
And also, James, I've got to say that a lot of this is also on Pepe as well. Like, did he really want to make it? There were rumours that he weren't turning up for his English classes and things like that, and etc. etc. And maybe because you walk into a club and you get found out that you're not really wanted. I don't know, So I just think it was not done. Both sides would have to take a bit of a blame on it,
And I'm fascinated by James' point there as well about Arsenal learning from the Pepe deal, because I would suggest, bringing it to the present day, is the Kai Havertz deal not an example of the club potentially not learning their lessons? Now, if Arteta wanted him, and you're saying that we're all agreeing that Pepe wasn't wanted by Unai Emery, this is an example of a player that was wanted by the manager, Arteta wanting Kai Havertz. But it's a high risk. And although it was, a few million less than 72 million, it's still a lot of money to spend on a guy that, I'm backing Havertz and Arteta's backing of him. I'm with him for now. But it's still a risk. The transfer is still a risk. Do you know what I mean? So I wonder if they have... Go on, James.
Sorry, I think it just speaks to how much Arteta rates him. I think what I think is difficult for us is we are all talking about the Havertz thing, where at worst we think it's going to be a flop, and at best we're saying, well, Arteta sees something, so it's hard for us to speak on all that with conviction. But honestly, you look at the press conferences. If Mikel Arteta showed up on this podcast, which I'm sure he's really keen to do, so let's try and make that happen.
Big fan.
Yeah, I've got no doubt. I bet he'd look us all and say, I love him. He said that in a press conference. I wanted him. I'm so sure about this player. I am beyond convinced. And then it's like, well, 65 million on a player, you're beyond convinced is going to be a star, ends up not being that much. So I hope it actually works for you. It's like we're not in Arteta's mindset with the Havertz one.
Yeah, I think that's the main difference, is that Emery didn't want Pepe. Arteta very much wanted Havertz, and that's probably the main difference. But listen, Pepe going removes us of the what do we do with Pepe problem that's been lingering over the club the last couple of years. That's done. He's gone. Contract terminated. Good luck to him. But the problem that remains over all of this is, our problem in selling players and getting some sort of value. If I reel off a list of names, we can start with Nicolas Pepe, Hector Bellerin, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Willian, Shade Kolasinac, Mkhitaryan, Socrates, Mustafi, Ozil, and to be honest, with Mkhitaryan, I'm going to throw in Sanchez in there because realistically, we lost Sanchez for nothing. That is some list. Now, listen, there's players like Willian in there and Kolasinac that I think everyone can understand very little value, if any, and the wages they were on, it was more about getting them off the books. Ozil, I think there's an argument to be had there that, the wages, the way we gave that big contract, that we shot ourselves in the foot. But there's other players like Oba, who okay, since leaving Arsenal, I think the decision's very much been justified when you look at his numbers, aside from his stint at Barcelona initially. But surely there was some value there. Surely there was some value in a Nicolas Pepe we've just talked about. It's the Sanchez stuff. We was very reactive to the situation rather than being proactive. When does this problem need to be addressed at Arsenal? Because we are spending big now, but when you look at the net spend, we're not helping ourselves out here moving forward, because that will become an issue at some point.
Can I go first very briefly? I think the kind of answers in your question there, Turkish, in that if you look at all those players you just listed, how many of them have gone on to do better? Or how many of them currently are doing really well? So what I mean by that is, I agree with you in the sense that some of those players you can get something for, surely. But equally, if those players have gone on to not do better, then maybe they're not as good as we think they are. Aubameyang, where is he? Is it Lyon now? Marseille?
Marseille.
Is it Marseille? Marseille are a big club, but it's Marseille. Do you know what I mean? It's not like these guys have gone on and left us and are doing well. So you're like, well, hang on a minute. They rate them, so why couldn't we've got money for those players? They're all at clubs that are either smaller than Arsenal or just having mayors. So yes, I think there's some value. We need to get better at getting some money back for those players, because this is business, right? If you look at any other industry, you can't just write off assets. You can't do that. At some point, you're going to get in trouble financially. But equally, I'm looking and thinking, who's paying who's paying any money for Bellerin? Who's paying money for Kolasinac? Do you know what I mean?
There must be some modelling agency or security guard firm out there that want Bellerin or Kolasinac on their books.
Wow.
Maybe we were looking in the wrong market. Maybe the wrong industry.
Lacazette out of that, Lacazette went for nothing as well. Like, you could have got something for him surely somewhere along the line. Ramsey was another one. I'm just off.
Aaron Ramsey prior to Arteta,
yeah. There must be some. I think now in football, like that, sometimes I think the risk and reward. Like sometimes we'll keep these players because we can get to a certain position in the league or something instead of taking money for them. I don't know, and then like you get them off the wages now. I get this a lot of time. I got them off the wages. That helps us out on the fair play league or whatever. I don't really know. So, but a lot of you look back on it, like maybe we was probably paying too much wages for these players. So, like when you're looking at these players, you're actually thinking, well, on top of a transfer fee, I've got to match these wages and everything like that. So that was probably hindering us. If you look at Arsenal now, they're rewarding the young players that have got a value as well. Like, so for instance, just going to pick out Saliba. You know that if you're going to get Saliba, you're getting a very, very good player, but he's on very, very good money, but he's not on the Ozil and sort of wages at this moment in time. So I do think Arsenal have learned. And if you look at all of those players there, and I'm not sticking up for Edu and Arteta, none of them are their signings. I think Willian was on that list, but he was a free transfer. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we paid anything for him. So when you look at all of those players back in the day, how much would you actually got from? Not a lot, but now look at how much all the players are worth. There's certainly a lot of value now at the club. Do you know, like, if you say, like, we need to fund someone to get this player, I don't think you could have funded anybody to do it. Like, we've had to really take a few hits because it's been poorly managed by whoever you have to say. I don't think it's all down to Arsene Wenger. It's people behind the scenes as well. But now I look at it now. I think if you was to say, right, well, we need to sell someone, just say that we had to. Well, you can take your pick from 5, 6, 7, 8. Where back in the day there weren't any.
I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating, the whole why do we struggle to sell so much where it seems like others are better at it. Liverpool have been very good at selling over the years. I'm not sure how much they've done the last few years. Chelsea, the example. I've got Chelsea players here that have left kind of very recently. You've got Kai Havertz, obviously, 65 million we paid. Mason Mount around 65 million. Kovacic went for nearly 30. Koulibaly's in there. Those are kind of the main transfer fees they recoup. Christian Pulisic. I think the thing I'd say, bar Koulibaly, is I think with those players, and I'm not saying they're worth this money, by the way, I think with those players, they feel salvageable in that they're still young. They've still got a lot to give, and they probably feel like they're worth a go. Whereas who's sitting there thinking, yeah, there's more in Willian? It turns out Fulham did, and actually it worked
he did all right. Yeah,
but you know what I mean. Bellerin has gone to where did he went to Betis, Barcelona, and Sporting. So none of them have wanted to keep him long term. Özil, I think, even though Özil actually, when he came in under Arteta, actually played some very decent football. I mean, again, look at how it's gone since. He's clearly not at that level anymore. And so there's two things for me. There's we're not selling players at an age that are, it makes people think, yeah, they're worth a go. They can still get better. There's still plenty of development there. I think the other thing, though, is that Arteta and Arsenal have made their stance on a lot of these players very public. Aubameyang dropped, out the squad. We'd rather you train away. Your influence is that bad. We'd rather you just away. So you're never going to command a fee for a player that clubs are looking at going, yeah, but you literally do not want him.
But to be fair, James, sorry to cut you, but Chelsea and Lukaku is the equivalent. I bet you Chelsea get a fee for him. I know he's on loan at Rome at the moment. I bet you Chelsea get a fee for him.
Well, you say that, okay, but let me just on that point, right? Socrates was another. He was left out of pretty much all the squads. Kolasinac, I can't remember his situation. It's happened. Mkhitaryan was sent out on loan. Ozil was left out of the squad as well. A lot of these players, we made very clear where we stood with them. But you say that about Chelsea, right? Some of the other players they've lost. N'Golo Kante went on a free. Aubameyang's gone on a free. Ziyech has gone on a loan. Bakayoko's gone on a free. Fofana on loan. What else have we got? Lewis Hall on loan. Okay, but they're going to get 35 million. Cesar Azpilicueta on a free. Kepa on a loan. I mean, what did Kepa, Kante, Ziyech, Bakayoko, what did they cost the club? Lukaku, who's gone on a £5 million loan fee, they'd have costed the hundreds of millions combined. Yeah. And they've all gone on loans. So it really is those players, I think, that have shown there is a future. My best years, Havertz is what, 24? Mount's 24. I can see managers believing, okay, we can get something. I'm not saying Chelsea don't sell well. They clearly do. They still got 20 million somehow for Koulibaly. But he came in for 40 something, I think. So,
I'll be surprised. I'll be very surprised.
Really?
Yeah, because I think he's on such massive wages, Jordan. I think that's the thing there. Like,
I think
it's 3 years now since he's signed, and he's been on loan for 3 years. This is his third year on loan. They're not actually putting him on loan to make him better or
take him off the books
for Chelsea. Yeah, they're getting him off the books. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
One of them. I'll be very, very surprised. You know what I mean? Because you're paying a lot in wages and all that. Like, and obviously these teams are like Juventus. I think has he got the Juventus now? I think
Roma.
Oh, Roma. Right, Juventus were in for a minute. Juventus can't afford the fee. They may, but can afford the wages, but they can't afford the fee.
When I look at Chelsea, I mean, you're right. They've cut off big contracts and big players coming in for big fees, but they offset that by continually spending for two. With us, I think this is the first time we're back at the big table, let's say. And when you hear recent reports and quotes about self-sustaining club and all of that, I think that at the moment we're offsetting the fact that we're not getting good value in player sales by the fact that we're doing good on the income part. And by income, I mean the players coming in have all had some sort of an impact in the last 2 years in a more or less positive way. If that, like for example, if the Havertz one turns out to be the make or break, or the big one this year that either takes us to first from second or takes us back to fourth from second, then I'll be looking more into, well, listen, okay, you wanted Havertz, but what more could we have done? We could have sold these players for a bit more and got a bit more money into, offset that risk in Havertz, or we could have, covered our backs with the Timber injury. I just feel like eventually with Arsenal, there's going to come a time where we're looking at player sales more than Chelsea fans would, because they're just used to spending so much money.
Also, I think it's a circle as well. Like, and I mean this with Liverpool. We were talking about Liverpool sold really well at one stage, but I've just off the top of my head, Oxlade-Chamberlain's gone for nothing. Firmino's gone for nothing. Like,
Keita's gone for nothing. Yeah,
the players, they age and they've done very well. Jordan Henderson, another one. Like, I mean, they do they stay for 4, 5, 6 years, and then their sell-on value diminishes. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I mean, with Liverpool, they did get they did get a good worth out.
Yeah,
of
they got some good deals along the way as well. I'm just saying, I just think it's a circle. I'm not sure.
I also think just two final points for me. I think it's about where the money is, right? All the money's in the Prem. So a lot of the transfers that we've listed off between Chelsea and Liverpool, funnily enough, have gone to Saudi Arabia. There's not a lot of money in Italy. There's not a lot of money in Spain. Who's paying? Going back to Arsenal, who's going to pay in Spain 15 mil for Bellerin? Who in France is going to pay 20 million for Lacazette? The money's just not there to kind of make those kind of investments. So I think where is the actual money to buy these players? And I think also as well, you've got to look at Chelsea's model. Chelsea don't care so much about their youth team in terms of they see their youth team as purely a way of making money. Now, that's fine. That's a business model. Whereas United and Arsenal, I think, are much more looking at a youth team as products to put into the first team. So Chelsea will happily make profit on a Mount or a Tomori or a who else has gone out recently? There's another Chelsea youngster that's gone out.
Hall gone out.
Who?
Hall, like the left back.
Yeah. They're much more comfortable in making profit on those players, whereas Eddie Nketiah, unless we get a bid for 35, 40 mil, we ain't letting Nketiah go. We don't see that as a business as a business model. We see it as no, we're training Eddie Nketiah up to be Arsenal's first team striker. Whereas Chelsea are like, great, if they score 25 goals for us, brilliant. But actually, it's pure profit. If we can get 40 mil off a youth product, happy day. So I think it's also about what your business model is.
Yeah. Yeah, people, let us know your thoughts on Nicolas Pepe in the comment section and our transfer dealings in general, especially regarding player sales and you know the need to turn that around. Hit the like button. Let's make sure we're on 1,000. We've already passed the half an hour mark, and we're going to keep it moving into something that I should have potentially done at the start of the season, because there was 4 games leading up to the first international break. But really, when I look back at those 4 games, if I was to ask the panel at the start of the season, what do you want out of the first 4 points wise? I'm pretty sure it would have been 12 out of 12. And the bare minimum, I'm pretty sure everyone would have said 10 points out of 12. We did the bare minimum. We got 10 points out of 12. But we've got another 4 fixtures in the Premier League now from now until the next international break, which starts, I believe, the 9th of October, if I'm not mistaken. And those 4 Premier League games are Everton away, Tottenham at home, Bournemouth away, and Man City at home. So we've got 2 big 6 fixtures there at the Emirates, and we've got 2 away days, Everton and Bournemouth. So now I'll pose the question, what should we be getting out of those 4? And what is the bare minimum? Jordan, let's start with you.
What should we get?
Yeah.
Versus what I think we'll get. What we should get. 10.
10 out of 12 from the next 4.
That's what we should get.
What's the bare minimum out of those 4 that you think is acceptable moving into the next international break?
The bare minimum is 7.
7.
7 is a bare minimum.
That's quite low. 7. Okay. Lee, what should we be getting in the next 4?
I think when you look at those fixtures, you're looking at getting 10 at the 10 minimum. What I say with that is that you've got Everton away, who are in the bottom 3 at this moment in time. Tottenham at home, we're at home. Bournemouth away. You know, if you're going to go for titles and top 4, you've got to win at Bournemouth. And then Manchester City at home is a home game. You know, one where I expect us to really go at. I think you've also got then to put into the fact that we've got Champions League games in the middle of that, so it doesn't look as quite as clear cut with those 4 games. Obviously, we've got to travel to we're at home in the first game, aren't we?
Yeah.
Before we play Spurs, so we're actually playing on the Wednesday. Spurs have got a nice rest during that week, and then of course I think then we've got to go to France before we play Man City, where Manchester City are, you know, used to the way it's playing and all that. But I think Arsenal have got to get, you know, like I think 7 would be a disaster, because that means you're losing to points on the big guns. Spurs' next few games is quite favourable. Man Manchester City's next 4 games are quite favourable up until they play us. So, dropping of the points now, we could be 6, 7, 8 points if that's the case, away from Manchester City. Too much. So I think that, tough games, don't get me wrong, Everton away, we know what that's going to be like. I'm not looking forward to that because it's going to be tough. But come on, I've watched them in the last few games. They're toothless. They haven't looked like scoring that many goals. So
they're grabbing 3 against us.
Say again?
They're grabbing 3 against us.
Yeah, that's I do think that we're a different kettle of fish away from home defensively. Right. So I'm looking at 2 tough games against Bournemouth and Everton. But come on, you've got to be looking to win them, and then you've got 2 games at home against big guns. And
what is it? What should we be getting? 10, and what's the bare minimum?
10 and 10.
10 and 10.
Yeah, 10 and 10 I honestly think like if we've got any real anything about us, we should be getting maximum points, because take away the two away games, we should be winning those 2 away games. Just forget about that. They should be like, yes, bang bang, and then you've got Manchester City and Tottenham, 2 tough games. But I tell you what, if they're away from home, it's a different kettle of fish. We'd be looking and going, I'll take a point there and a point there. But we're at home. We've got to win our home games. We've got to be ruthless at home. And I do think home advantage in the North London derby is key. I think we normally win at home. They normally win at their place. Manchester City, well, we haven't won for a very, very long time against them, and that has got to change at some stage. So, yeah. The Champions League games worry me a little bit, because
we'll touch on them next. Let's do the Premier League and then because with the Champions League, actually, we'll touch on that next. James, so Jordan's gone 10 and 7, right? Jordan?
Yeah.
Should 10 and bare minimum 7. Lee's gone should 10, bare minimum 10. James, what's yours?
I actually think we should be getting all 12. Because the teams you don't want to face, because City are 4 for 4 and Tottenham have made a great start, they're home games.
Yeah.
So let's do it. I mean, in my word, I go into games, hopeful Sheffield United might nick something off City. So I should be absolutely hopeful that we can do the job at home. And I know that's crazy because we've lost however many in a row in the league. So a City fan hearing this probably think you delusional idiot. You lot haven't beaten us in years. How can you think you should? But because that's why you spent 100 million on Declan Rice. That's why we spent 200 million pounds on players, and that's why we were understanding of last season, a younger squad. Facing that pressure, and now show you've learned from it. Man City, and look, it might be different. That'll be game week 8, so it might be different. Then, at the moment, we've only seen 4 weeks of Premier League action. But I don't think they look spectacular. I don't think they look near their best. I think they look incredibly efficient. I'll give them that. But I don't think they look near their best, scintillating best. And in that Community Shield, where everyone wanted to say, City aren't up to speed, and then they go win 4 in a row, I thought we did well to nullify them, have spells where we were on the ball and all that and play. And you saw the 2 teams took it vaguely seriously on the day. And I just think at home, I want to see us do a similar thing, have spells where we have the ball, where we're causing them problems. We've got the firepower to do it. The away games, awkward, because I think Bournemouth are actually going to prove a very good team. Well, I think they're going to have a good season. And I think Everton, it's just awkward, right? It's a matchup. What's the boxing phrase? Styles make fights or whatever. Like, who doesn't want to see a Mikel Arteta trying to play, all this sort of nice, wonderful football against Sean Dyche, who's going to try and sort of do us physically, and he's good on the counter and he floods the midfield and they've got target men up top. That's exactly the kind of thing I could see us struggling with, but get through it. Brentford play a similar style against us, and we went and won 3-0 last season. So I want to see Arsenal try. They've got answers to this. On the bare minimum side of things, I mean, a draw's like forgivable in any of those fixtures, except probably the North London derby, because it's you beat Tottenham at home. But largely, if you're forgetting that bit, you just look at the teams or where they are. It's by forgivable, I mean if it's the one draw and you win the other three, I think we're sitting here after game week 8 going, you know what? Not a bad shift. 8 games, 6 wins, 2 draws, not the end of the world at all. But I just think it still feels like that should be not sure. That Man City, do you all feel like we should be winning it? Or do you think it's still too early to be saying, or do you think it's too
No, I
delusionary
think
thinking we should be winning it?
I actually agree with you on that. As much as people are going to listen to it and say, "Oh, you're raising expectation. You're going to be the first to moan about it when it doesn't." The facts of the matter are, we finished second last season. We spent 180 million into the midfield, buying one of England's, best up and coming players in
Mm.
Declan Rice, and Manchester City, you know, they've won 4 out of 4, but like you said, they haven't looked their scintillating best, and we're at the Emirates. So, all things considered, surely it's about time that we think we should be beating Man City at the Emirates, and the bare minimum would be a draw. So for me, it should be getting 12 points out of the next 4, and the bare minimum 10.
Yeah. I can't remember. I think my bare minimum was 10 as well.
Yeah,
I just Tottenham keep beating them, don't they? Tottenham keep beating them with their ground. And Liverpool, even when they weren't winning titles, and they did it when they did win a title, but even when they weren't, they were at least going, yeah, you're not going to have it easy at Anfield. Last year, Man City went to Liverpool in bad form and lost 1-0. When are we going to
United.
find a way? When are we? Yeah, United always once one game a season, except for I think 2 years ago. United have always, even if they lose the Old Trafford game, they find a way to kind of con themselves a win at the Etihad. Like, we need to absolutely find something, something that makes you just, in a weird way, I'd almost rather, if it is 10, I'd almost rather we like drew at Everton but beat City. Like, I think
Yeah, yeah.
psychologically we need that more.
Hmm.
Um, and I really believe they can do it. Like, I genuinely believe they can beat Man City. I think we've got the tools to do it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we have the tools. Finishing second and spending the money
Yeah.
we've spent. You'd think at least our expectations in the fixture raise. And listen,
I,
we can't be dropping points in
sorry, but
general.
I expect Arsenal to win every home game. I know that sometimes it doesn't happen, but I expect Arsenal to win every home game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
That's where it's got me now, and went from last season and all that. I I expected us to beat Manchester United because we was at home, not because I think that we was a better team or not like that. It's because we're at home. I expect to beat Tottenham because we're at home. If we're playing Tottenham away, I never expect us to beat Tottenham away. I take the draw, you know,
You hope.
and go from there. Manchester City's a different one. I get that. I get that. There's scars there. It's a different thing. But I'm going to be really honest, guys. I'm really honest. If we go to Man City at home and lose, I'll be massively disappointed. I'm not going to be going, oh well, we played well and all that. You know, if we get a draw against them, so be it. But I don't want us losing to Manchester City at home. No more. That doesn't happen. No more. I know it's crazy to say something like that, but if you're chasing them down and expect to beat them for the title, how can you turn around and say, I'll tell you what, let's cheer on Manchester United when they're playing and let's cheer on so-and-so when they're playing. But when we play them at home, we don't think that we can beat them. We've got to get that mentality that we can do it ourselves.
Yeah. And on that subject, I'm going to bring up a comment from Instagram. Obviously, we usually look at the YouTube comments, but recently on a supporters club, I talked about, can Arsenal win the Champions League? And I said, we can, luck of the draw included. And obviously, a couple of the other big boys facing each other wouldn't go amiss. But one of the comments back to me on Instagram was from Liam. And Liam, I'm sure you're a supporter of the channel or supporter of my stuff, because you started off by saying expected better from you, Turkish. You'll be the first one to start moaning and wanting the owners out when it all goes wrong and you get knocked out early doors. And my reply was, so instead, we should lower our standard to provide a preemptive reason if we don't, so the owners are not under pressure. And this is the mentality we need to go in with. We can't go in to the Champions League thinking, first time back, quarterfinals. We can't go into this Man City fixture thinking, well, they always beat us. They're going to beat us again. We need that mentality to change round. Will it happen? Who knows? But at least we need to believe and hope that it will. And Arteta's raised the bar and standards at this club, and it's about us as fans also doing the same and also keeping it there. In my opinion, surely the time has come now to beat City. If not, then what are we playing for? Second place.
But also, like, what these people, I don't know why they tend to be followers of Arteta. I don't know. I sort of place people who are kind of like more critical of our expectations as being very supportive of Arteta. Maybe that's unfair, but what's crazy to me is like Arteta himself. Why, in that year when we're chasing top four and Partey's having injury problems and Aubameyang's out the squad and the team's not quite ready, why does he go toe-to-toe with them at the Emirates? Think that game we lost 2-1, Rodri. Why did he do that? Because he absolutely believes we can beat them. Arteta wants to win football matches. And he will do it in the way he believes he can do it. And evidence of that is that the FA Cup semi-final, he parked the bus, wing back, sit deep, let's hit them on the counter. Now, Arteta hasn't always been pragmatic, but largely the reason he's implementing this style of football is because he believes we can go punch for punch with Man City and come out on top. You think he's telling Rob Holding to mark Erling Haaland all around the pitch because, well, I mean, why? I mean, what other reason would there be? Because he believes, wrongly, naively at times, that we can win that way. So why should we not believe, if our manager believes and then has spent more money on top of this project, why should we not believe he can't deliver on it? Especially when actually, even though he's maybe under-delivered by the standards of Arsenal, he's actually over-delivered in terms of what I believed he could do with certain squads. I didn't think he could get into the Champions League with the squad a couple of years ago. He very nearly did. I certainly think he'd win a title with the squad last year. He very nearly did. So I just don't understand why people find it so crazy that we might actually believe in this football team. There's something it's like the minute Arsenal fans are feeling good about their side, and it comes from rivals as well as our own fans, the minute we're kind of really confident about it, it's that you shouldn't be confident, but then it's, Arsenal also have flopped if they don't win the league. It's like, I don't know. How do the two things exist at the same time? So I back this team. I believe in this team. That's why after Fulham, no one really lost their head. Some people did, but none of us here did.
No, I think that weirdly enough, the way my small brain works is I'm more focused on the three smaller teams, Bournemouth, Everton, and Spurs, because I see it as a big picture to win the league. There's more points available from those other teams than there are in the big games. I totally agree with James. I think psychologically beating City would be massive for us, as well as 3 points. And I do think if we're going to win a title this year, Arsenal have got to have a 90% win rate at home. We've got to win 90% of our games at home. You forgive 2 or 3 draws, but we've got to win pretty much all of our home games, and we should. But it's the other teams, it's the smaller teams where I think you really win titles. If you can get a win against United, we've done that. Great. Spurs, great. But ultimately, it's the away to Fulham's. It's the home to West Ham. It's the away to Brighton. Or Brighton are a biggish team now, but it's those 3 points that rack up that win you titles. And I get why the glamour game is Manchester City, and leaving a punch on their nose would be amazing for us. I mean, yeah, you have to beat them at some point to win a title. But I'd be much more pissed off if we drop points in the Everton, Spurs, and Bournemouth games than if we drop points in the game against Man City.
But Jordan, we finished 5 points off City last year. That feels fair to me. I know it's slightly skewed by the fact they rotated because they'd won the league in the last 2. But then I think you look at some of the injuries. I think largely 5 points behind feels right to me. Okay, but 6 points they had a 6-point head start because they beat us twice. I just think if we at least win one. Win one of those 2 games. You lose at the Etihad, right? But you win one of them. At least it's a level playing field. Then it's a straight shootout for what you do against everyone else.
Agree.
To think that actually how we both competed against all the other 18 teams in the league, we performed better in terms of points accumulation, and it was just not just the head-to-heads. Ultimately, in a race for the title, your head-to-heads matter massively. They clearly deserve to win it because they beat us twice, and by 7-2, I think was the accurate score, very convincingly at the FA Cup game. So that is just why I want to at least win this Emirates game. And then actually, even though this might be a bad mentality, and I know we can win at the Etihad,
If you lose the away game there, then
I could
it's
just forgive it. Just at least have it a straight shootout for the rest of the points.
Agree. Yeah, I think we can beat them, and I want to beat them at home. And I think that we can't go into that game thinking, oh, it's Man City, oh, just lay down and die. Of course not. But I look at the league as a 38 game thing rather than just a beat Man City thing. And I just the three small.
Right.
And to be honest with you, when you said that, you raised a good point, because we are going to move on now. But before we do, I just want to say, leading up to both Man City fixtures last season, we pretty much crumbled in the 2-3 games leading up to it.
Oh,
because it
you're
seemed
right.
like we took our eye off the ball. So this season, make sure you get the job done against these teams, because it's Manchester City before the international break next. Similar to the way we done United and went into the international break, heads held high. It's our chance to do that against City. But let's make sure we go into City with 9 points out of 9, Lee.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think that's where other games like Champions League games will benefit us. That we're playing, we can't be thinking like. Do you remember those sort of games? Because we didn't have games. We had a week to think about it.
Yeah.
This time around, we're not going to have that. We're going to be bosh. So I don't think we can keep an eye so much on that Manchester City game, because we're going to have too many games coming up. So I think that'd be a benefit to us.
It's a great point you raised, Turkish. I'd like to think the players aren't as arse about it, because they just played Man City at Wembley. So they've got that whole, we've got 90 minutes against them, we're showing to be competitive, however important people think the Community Shield game is and all that. But there are so many other things to look forward to, from the trip to Goodison, to the return of the Champions League, to a North London derby. I'd be really disappointed if the players start dropping points, because once again, they look like they're looking ahead to that City fixture. There's so much, that week at the Emirates where, we kick off our return to the Champions League at home to PSV, and then we've got the North London derby. I expect the Emirates and North London to be absolutely buzzing all week, because what a week of home action we've got. And, last year, it's funny, Julian got kind of cooked for this online, but he made a point that I thought, it's not a reason why we lost the league, but I agree it had some sort of significance. Man City, that Arsenal-Man City game not happening in October.
Yeah, it was a key.
Whereas it happened in February. I think it makes a difference. We would much rather have had that in October, where we were flying. They just, I think, drew at somewhere. I can't remember where he said they just drew Copenhagen. I can't remember. I might have got that wrong. And they weren't looking at their very best. And we didn't have that, can they do it? Can they really win the title pressure? Once it came around, the two fixtures were in crunch time. It was, you're in your final 3-4 months of the season. Now, I'm not making an excuse for what I'm saying, Jordan, is it added such a weight of, that's it. You played 23 games now. Can you do it? Show us you can do it. This is coming at a point where we're in the season, lads. There's a lot of football to be played. This is Man City. Give it your all. But, I don't think it's got that same
Sorry, I know we're going to move on to just on that. I've heard that rationale put forward before, and I get it, but I disagree, because if you'd have had City when we were meant to have them, and you'd have lost that game, who's to say we would have gone on to have the not spiraled out of control? So if you'd have said to me, Jordan, you can have Manchester City twice in the second half of the season, I'd probably take that, because what I'm thinking then is we can accumulate all those points. By the time you get to that first game against City, you're in the title race. You play them early when you're meant to play them in, say, November, lose that game, you draw the next game, you win, you draw, and then the second game against City becomes irrelevant. Whereas what we had last year, I think actually worked in our favour, because we swerved City the first time round, we was allowed to accumulate all those points. So by the time we got to the City game, that game meant something. Yeah. Whereas if we'd have been beaten by City the first time, the game might have been irrelevant come the second fixture. Do you know what I mean?
I see it both ways. That's fair.
You're both right.
Do you know what is a good thing though, guys? And it really is now. I like last season before that, when the fixtures come out, I used to look at when we got Tottenham, when we got Boxing Day. This season, I looked at it when we got Man City.
Yeah.
And that's how things have changed now, So when you say about expectations and all that. Whether you like it or not, our expectations are changing because of the success of the team and all that. Like, I've never looked for Manchester City's results or performances, or certainly not looked at when we got Manchester City. But that was the first thing I'd done. I looked, we've got them at home early and we've got them in May. I think it's March. We've got end of March. I think we've got them in away from home. You know, you don't do that. You know, so you look at the first fixture, you look at this and that. Tottenham you always look at because it's ingrained in you. All of a sudden, you know, years ago it was when we got Man United. I actually looked for Man United before I used to look for Spurs.
Yeah.
It's turning back that sort of way now. Manchester City now is a massive game for us. Like, you know? Why? Because we feel that we can compete with them. I'm not saying we're going to beat them, but we feel that we can compete with them.
In a word, guys, is it good or bad that we've got City so early?
Good. And at home.
I think so too. I agree.
And at home as well.
Test us. I'm not trying to.
And also with the Champions League at the same time, they're involved in it as well as us. Like, so I think it's good.
Because we've overrun a little bit with the conversation on the Premier League and Man City and the fixtures we've got next 4. People, give us your should out of 12 points and give us the bare minimum out of 12 points. But PSV at home, Lens away, that's the 2 Champions League fixtures before the next international break. 6 out of 6 points. I'm not even going to go around and ask anyone else unless anyone has an argument against that. 6 out of 6 is the expectation. 6 out of 6 is the bare minimum. Cool. Next up, Everton away. And amongst Everton away, Thomas Partey's out for the next, maybe 4 weeks now, because it was 6 weeks at the start of the international break. So we won't have him available. We won't have him available for PSV, Tottenham, potentially London, potentially City. I did want to discuss Partey a little bit, but we have overrun. So this is more about the Everton game.
Yeah, James.
This is more about the Everton game and given the thoughts and eventual predictions. I guess the big one will be, does Havertz start it? Does Jesus come straight back in? I think those are the 2 big questions. And maybe make it free. Does Gabriel retain his place next to Saliba?
He got injured, didn't he, for Brazil?
Are you joking?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Got took off.
Well, where have you got that from? I haven't seen that anywhere.
Yeah. It's, you know, I follow Brazil. Come off in the, I think it's the 84th minute he come off. Hopefully it's only an impact injury, but he was
source on Twitter. Leonardo Judges is his cousin.
It's all out there. He got took off.
Leonardo Judges.
Leonardo Judges.
Yeah, he got took off in the. And do you know what really annoyed me about him? I'm starting to go off Brazil, if I'll be honest, because I do like Brazil, but starting to go off. They were beating Bolivia 5-1, and Gabriel Jesus come on in the 88th minute.
That's all right, man.
No, but like, I'd rather not really. You know, I think just ridiculous sort of time to come on, like when you're 5-1 up. You're risking injury and everything like that. Yeah, but so he went off. But hopefully it was an impact injury. It was a bad tackle, as it happens. So have a look at it and you'll see. But it's definitely true. He come off, and I don't know if he's a doubt for their next game. But yeah, so
to be honest, I think with the physicality and the way that I expect Everton to play, I think having Tomiyasu at right back and putting Ben White centre back actually could be a benefit anyway. We know that in the air Tomiyasu is really strong, so I wouldn't actually be upset with the back 4 of Zinchenko, Saliba, White, and Tomiyasu. That's the back 4 that I'd probably.
I've just looked it up. That so they think it's an impact injury, and there's pictures of him in training since. So I think.
Oh, there is. I've been training since.
Well, that's what Twitter's telling me.
Well, you believe everything on Twitter.
Well, I'm not believing.
Believe Twitter and don't believe me. He's had to look it up, guys. You know what I mean? Very hard.
He respects the viewers. But yeah, I mean, listen, with Everton as well. I mean, come on. I've seen them this season, and really, we should be rolling them over.
Well, we've said that before, Turkish. I think we all predicted the Everton win last year in terms of beating them last year, and we lost. So we can't be arrogant and be thinking on paper it's 3 points. You're going for a title, you beat Everton straight. But we've said this before.
Look, prediction time then.
Prediction
So,
time.
Yeah, nice little
So
tee up.
before prediction time, drum roll, please.
Oh, jeez. Still doing
You three
this.
actually did it.
Give the
Well,
viewers what they want. As
Yeah.
painful as it is, give them.
you don't win trophies at this time of season. You should know
That's
that.
right. That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
if anyone knows that, it's the champ league. But yeah, we will keep it moving.
That's the champ, you know, the
champ.
double champ.
I got 2 belts on. We need Forever Arsenal belts. I want to do a show with 2 belts like this, like fucking Triple H back in the day.
Oh, God.
People, the prediction table hasn't changed. I'm sure you know what it is, even on audio platforms. I'm top 8 points, Jordan second 5 points, James and Leon 3 points each. It's still very early days, only 4 games played and 4 games predicted. So it's still going to be a lot of change. And as always, we go from top to bottom in order of predictions. I'm going first. And I'm going to go Arsenal. 3-1. We're going to go for another.
I reckon you've looked up the 3-1 as like the most frequent score in football. Because you always go 3-1 and you always lead these bloody stupid games we play that put me into debt. And I just, I might just have to start copying your scores.
3-1. Wait, let me do 3-1 to Everton away with clean sheets.
No, locked in.
Yeah, locked in now. Let's move on.
Thank you, lads. Thank you. If it happens to be 3-1, not be angry.
Watch us win 3-1.
I know.
Third goal. Where they're going, yeah. Oh.
Go on, Jordan.
I'm gonna go 2-0. 2-0. 2 late goals.
2-0. James.
We've lost 3 in a row there, you know. We've lost 3 in a row. We're not playing our best. 2-0 Arsenal.
He's gone for Jordan's. Lee.
Well, I was going to say 2-0, but I'm going to have to change that up.
No, go on. You 3 all do 2-0. It's your chance to catch up.
No.
The 3 Musketeers. All for one and one for all.
I'm going to go better than that. I think that this is going to be a drubbing, so I'm going to go 3-0.
3-0. Mr. Leonardo Judges.
Oh, you know the Lee you're getting next Monday if it's not.
Yeah.
There you go. People, just to round off the predictions, Lee has gone 3-0. Jordan and James have gone 2-0. I've gone 3-1. And we keep it moving. We will be back after the Everton game, before the next game as usual. And we'll see how we fare in the prediction table then. But that's the predictions in. And as always, we're going to round it off with comments of the day. Hope everyone has one, Jordan in particular, since they haven't been up to standard in the last 3-4 weeks.
No, they were better this week. They were worth reading out this week, yeah.
I'll rattle off your list.
Well, I got one. I've got J Dizzle 8258. He says, I love James's facial reaction to Jordan's comment about Aaron Wan-Bissaka being man of the match. That being said, that was funny actually, because you all I saw all 3 of your faces, like the disgust on your faces was hilarious. That being said, need to work on the corner taking. Can't count how many Martinelli took that didn't beat the first man, but still 3-1. Come on, you Gunners. So yeah, I did notice your 3 reactions when I made that comment, and it's not, but this is the first time I actually probably concede that it was probably a bit of a wild shout. So
have you seen my face when you said Havertz is like Kaka?
I didn't say that.
I think you should go back to that one.
I didn't say that. Don't try. Don't try.
The other day on Twitter, a Kaka comp did the rounds, and I nearly tagged Jordan to say, "It's like prime Havertz." This.
You're gonna cook me with the correct quotes at least.
That's all I'd leave it.
That's all I ask.
I've got one here from Hoods, and he says the Forever Arsenal show is the best piece of Arsenal content out there. Lee with his humour, James with his knowledge and tactical insight, Turkish the voice of the fans, and Jordan filling in until we get Dan or Shorai.
Oh yeah, I saw that. So harsh.
I did put another one just in case.
So harsh.
Yeah, he adds much love for all 4. And
yeah, it was quite a good comment.
You can keep your love, mate.
Go on. Who's
But that
up
was the
next?
one that I had, so I've gone for that. I've got to just actually go for
You
another one.
wanker.
Lee definitely celebrated the win long after the podcast was recorded. Well deserved, great content as always. Big up to you all. You know, so
Nice.
I
Who's that from?
It's from CRZ or whatever. So I don't know.
CRZ.
But I'll tell you what, I hope it didn't show that I'd had a few drinks that day, like, you know. So
Yeah. Listen, sometimes we're gonna do shows right after the game. It is what it is. It's part of the chemistry. It's part of the banter. So Tottenham we'll do one that night after the Tottenham game. We'll do one that night. James, comment of the
Might
day
lose.
to wrap it all up.
So I've got two I like. Rank says 6 state-of-the-art cameras capturing the game, a thoroughly tested computer program analysing the exact moment the ball is played, the ref drawing lines properly on both players. Jordan, I'm not convinced that Garnacho goal is offside.
Do better. Do better, man. That's all I ask.
Spot
Do better.
on. 6 state-of-the-art cameras.
It's not enough. Get it right.
Thoroughly tested computer program is just genius. What a comment.
Just do better.
And then Matty says hello. Arteta's next team talk. If you're not playing well, just score a couple of foggy goals.
Yeah, the fucking end of it.
You come out with some gems, Jordan. Those comments are brilliant. You just come out with some amazing, you know, if you're not playing well.
I don't know
what
why I
do you
said that. 'Cause
Sure.
I don't know why I said that because it was obvious that what Lee was trying to, work
no,
hard.
it is a logical thing to say. Do you know what though? And I'm being real because I was thinking about that comment the other day. Even at any sort of football, if you do score a goal, it then half masks 1,000
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
It masks 1,000 things.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but it's not a go-to tactic, is it? It's not. I'm struggling in game.
Can we get a
Put one in
goal?
the back of the net.
No, it's it's not. It's a sort of Channel 4 comment, really. But
There's no need for that. There's no need for
ever since England have gone to Channel 4, it's gone crack. You know what I mean? But we won't go into that.
Oh,
Like,
go
you know
for
what I mean?
profession now.
So, but no, but it's such a good comment, really. Like, a goal does cover up 1,000 things, and
That's right.
if Havertz scores on I'll tell you what, if Havertz scores on Sunday against Everton, there'd be less criticism for him than and he has exactly the same game.
I think he will score.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think he will score.
There'll be less people going for him because he scored. It's just a funny situation.
We just need him to choose to score, and then everything.
Yeah,
will be
just
fine.
decide.
Everything will be all right.
I'm having a
Don't worry
shot.
about his work rate. Anything else, he's just got to score.
I ain't playing well. Let me get at the end of this. Put it in the back of the net.
He's gonna score. Watch, he's gonna score.
But judging by what happened with Germany recently in Japan and Havertz's performance,
Did you see
I wouldn't.
Did you see the player ratings on?
Yeah, dude.
No, but
dude.
I read that thinking because Havertz got a 6 and a load of them got 4s and 5s, and I read it thinking, you know what, fair play, Kai. At least you've put in the shift here. Good on you. Everyone, fair enough. You've done your bit. Your team's lost 4-1, but you led the line well. Turns out that actually one is good, and the closer to 10 is bad. I thought, oh no,
6. Their 6 is equivalent to our 1.
Yeah,
so Havertz essentially got a 1 out of 10 for Germany.
He's not going for our Kai at the moment, are they? Like,
no, but they will. They'll
They
turn.
will. It'll turn.
They will. Come on, Kai.
Come
I
on.
believe in you. I've been wearing the AFTV merch, the King Kai top, so I'm doing my bit. Come on.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah, something like that,
just
Kai.
score a goal.
Just fucking put it in the back of the net, mate.
Just score a goal, mate. It'll be
Put it
fine.
in the back of the net, and I'll give you a 7. Just put it in the back of the net. I'll give
He'll,
you.
he'll probably score and then get sent off 2 minutes later. Get a red
You have to
card.
put a mocker on it, don't you? Like, Man United coming out and you days.
He'll score and get a red. All right, listen, we're gonna wrap it up here. We've made our predictions. Make sure you make yours in the comment section below, people. I know there's still a little while before the game, but we're here to start off the week. So hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Put the notification bell on. And make sure you leave your comments, people, because we do go through the comment section. We reply to a fair few, and obviously we pick our favorites for comments of the day every show, every week. And yeah, we're back We're back Everton away this Sunday. Make sure you're there Monday morning for the next show. Love for the love, people. We're out.